evening, folks. Thanks for joining me here in the side-by-side. Today, I don't have any cute videos to share. There's no shots of the animals. It's just me and a little bit of conversation kind of from the heart about what we're doing here on the farm. And the reason why I don't have any of the cute videos today is specifically because of what we're doing on the farm. So I came home from work today. My wife had a very long day. Obviously, Charlotte was being an absolute gem. As you know, she's a nearly 2-year-old, so a full day can be a very full day sometimes. And it was like, okay, let's gather Charlotte up, get her all in her winter pants and her mitts and everything. Let's go outside and spend some time here in the side-by-side, cruise around, go check out the animals, play in the chicken house for a little bit, look at the sheep, and just have some time. And it's it's a beautiful thing. It really is. So two of the biggest questions I get pretty much every day. The first one is usually like, how do you find the time to do everything you do? And the second one is, how do you manage to get your kids interested or even involved in what you're doing on the farm? And that kind of plays into a third question, which I'll take a little bit of a tangent here. When I stopped over at Bloom Enterprises the other day and I picked up a new bag of chicken feed, I was talking with Robin over there, and the question kind of come up, a conversation around like, when is the time right to go like all in on, with your kids, and like, this is how farming works. Like, to what extent do you want to get them involved, and at what age is it appropriate to see things like butchering animals, as an example? So to answer the first question in regards to how do you find time to do things, well, there's a couple of things. I mean, generally you're going to make time for the things that are important to you. A lot of what we do here is trying to grow our own food, and if you want to eat, you kind of got to make some time to put some priority on these things, right? But there are other, obviously, day-to-day obligations that we have. If the farm is not our sole income, the farm is kind of secondary to our primary income, so we have to make time for regular employment. And a lot of the projects are done half an hour, 45 minutes at a time, and you just keep working away at things in the little bit of spare time you get. Right now, as a prime example, we've had supper, we've put Charlotte to bed, and it's just come out and work on a thing in the evening afterwards, right? And that's how we get things done. So to tie into that, so now really when you're talking about time, but you're also talking about getting your kids interested in what you're doing, how do you get your kids interested in what you're doing? And it really all stems from at what age. So this is kind of touching on all 3 points at once. My recommendation would be to get your kids involved in what you're doing at the earliest possible age. Now what that means is whatever you're going to want to do, especially when it comes to prioritization of time, means that you're going to have to set aside probably 3 times the amount of time that it takes to do something in order to do it with your kids, if you want them to become interested and engaged in what you're doing, because it requires a lot of patience. Now, there's a lot of what we do here that we try to involve Charlotte in, from like getting the eggs or feeding the sheep, or herding the chickens around, or whatever it is, and she has a great time, and that's wonderful because it's building that engagement, it's building that sense of value, that sense of ownership. If you see her in the chicken house right now and you try to pick up eggs, she'll get mad at you, because that's her job, is to go in there and retrieve the eggs and put them in the bucket, right? And that's exactly what it is. That's what we're aiming for, right? Is that sense of ownership, that sense of pride, that instillment of values from a very early age, and that will obviously have a carry through, a trickle down impact into her later years. So now, when is the right time, to put all your cards on the table and say, you know what, we're butchering a cow today, and you're going to see the whole thing from start to finish? Well, there's not a magic number for that. Really, it all depends on, again, that how much have you had that discussion with your children, how much have they been involved in, how much responsibility, what's their individual maturity level, before you decide that you really want to, whether it's chickens or goats or sheep or cows or whatever it is, that you're gonna open their eyes on, because you know that's the other side of farming and homesteading, is that some of this stuff you have to do in order to survive. It's not all just watering the cucumbers in the greenhouse. I will say though, the earlier you can start educating the kids and instilling the kids with an understanding of where things like their food comes from, the easier it's going to be later on for them to have an understanding of how that food gets from being fluffy to being delicious. Because there's always that middle ground there where it can be traumatic if they're not aware of it. But if they have a good understanding up front, they understand where eggs come from, they understand where meat comes from, they understand where their vegetables come from, it's going to be a lot easier on butchering day. Now, I really think this is a difficult question for a lot of parents, and the problem is a lot bigger, obviously, than the individual family unit. It's a more of a societal issue, is that our kids today, well, even many adults for that matter, don't gain an appreciation for where food comes from. Because, like, I mean, I can go out here and I can see there's a chicken, and then tomorrow I'm gonna eat that chicken. Well, maybe not that chicken, but one that looks just like it, right? And it's fairly conducive to, you know, I understand that's a chicken and that's what's gonna be on my plate tomorrow. Whereas if you look in your pantry, and like there's nothing that when you look outside in your greenhouse or growing out in your field or in your garden or out in one of your pens or wherever it is, and you look in your pantry or your fridge or your freezer and there's nothing that looks like that, that's where we really lose an appreciation for ownership of our animals and understanding of our food chain. And we also lose a lot of engagement in children at a very early age, because they just don't have an appreciation for it. So if you're feeding your children real food, there's a very good chance they're going to have a lot more ownership throughout their lifetime. But nobody's ever grown a potato chip, right? Nobody's ever grown candy. Nobody's ever, well, heck, I mean, you don't even grow chicken fingers for that matter, right? Because, again, it's a processed food. What goes in is not what comes out. And the two things are they're just not relatable. So that's why when I got home today, I just said, you know what, we're not going to film anything. We're just going to take Charlotte out and we're going to hop into side by side and we're going to go check out the chickens, the pigs, the sheep. We even spent a little time with the donkeys and just have a little bit of fun. And get that appreciation for just, you know, some clean farm living. And it honestly is the best life ever. There are some folks out there that would think, oh, you're brainwashing your kids or you're imprinting your kids, but honestly, really, no, it's not what it's about at all. It's just about instilling good work ethic, some family values, and honestly some appreciation for where your food comes from. With that said though, there's an appreciation that I have every single evening. It's for a cup of tea. So I'm going to let you go for now. I hope you have a fantastic evening. We'll see you tomorrow.